Good morning, supervisors, and we're going to start our meeting here. It's 9 o'clock on February 8th, so we'll call our St. Croix County Board of Supervisors to order. And at this time, we'll have an invocation with Reverend Guy Usher from the St. Paul Episcopal Church. So everybody stand, please.
Let us pray. Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, send down upon those who hold office in this county of St. Croix the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, that with steadfast purpose they may faithfully serve in their offices to promote the well-being of all people. And the blessing of God Almighty, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit be upon all in this room, now and always. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Will everybody join me in pledge allegiance, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. We'll have roll call now. Cindy? We have two people absent and they are excused. Thank you. Now we're going to be open for public comment, and we have a few people for things that are on or off the agenda, and we limit it to 3 minutes for everyone so that you're aware that you have a 3-minute time limit on this. I've got a, looks like a Barbara LeBaire. Is that the correct name? Pronounced there? You can.
Okay. Well, it's a good try. My name is Cerie Lieber, and I live in Warren Township.
Okay.
In the city of New Richmond. They say, I tell everybody, my neighbor across the street is Roberts. The neighbor south of me is Hudson. So I'm right on the corner. But I want to speak to the transportation meeting and to the future mass transit committee that's being formed. I am very interested in this committee. And I find that when the meetings are held off-site, I have a really hard time following. So I'd like to recommend to the committee, the new formed committee, that when they're in Hammond or River Falls, if we could get those videotaped so that all the residents in St. Croix County could see those, it would really help to inform all the residents, in St. Croix County, the importance, and it'll allow them to be updated. And I'm one of those, so I'd like to recommend that. And because I am interested in this, I would also like to nominate myself for one of the 6 citizens to be on the board. So, thank you. That's what I have to say.
Thank you. Our next person is Darla Myers.
Darla Myers, 1098 Golden Oaks Lane in Hudson. I am here representing the silent majority who had to get out of their beds at 5 a.m. this morning and drive to work. I'm representing the silent majority who cannot afford to pay the exorbitant taxes we have in St. Croix County and then move to another state. I'm representing the silent majority who know that their children and grandchildren will not be living in St. Croix County because they can't afford the high taxes. These are the people who can't come to these meetings and voice their strong disapproval of having to pay for mass transit for employers unwilling to pay their employees a wage good enough to buy a car. There is one employer who spoke in favor of mass transit, and they have hundreds of employees. Curious about that company, an unofficial survey was done of their employee parking lot, where the majority of their employees drove to work in their own cars. But as the new shift was starting, 2 buses from Metro Transit arrived to deliver more workers. These workers would have likely qualified for the employer work tax credit, in addition to having a bus service transport them to their job. Those are the employees that should be paid more so they can afford their own cars. The taxpayer should not have to pay for mass transit, neither should the taxpayer have to pay for transportation for so-called charitable organizations. I sent an email to every St. Croix County Board Supervisor asking for a response to information received from Wisconsin Senator Barca, a Democrat, who is trying to pass a bill for mass transit in southeast Wisconsin. In that proposed bill, he writes he wants to form a regional transit authority. The counties would need to approve identical resolutions outlining the creation of the entity, and local voters would need to approve the action by a referendum. One supervisor responded clarifying that Barca's bill is for a regional transit commission. That is a moot point. The issue is that a Democrat sees the need to get buy-in from the voters. Why wouldn't St. Croix County transit decisions be made in collaboration with local counties? After viewing the video where Blake Fry of the Hudson Chamber of Commerce promoted mass transit, the obvious question left unanswered was, where are the other local chambers of commerce? After contacting 15 local chambers of commerce, of those who responded, none were aware of the mass transit proposals for St. Croix County. One chamber of commerce went so far as to say that taxpayers cannot afford to even pave their own Main Street. How can they afford to fund mass transit? One supervisor said he doesn't want the $27 million maintenance building to go to referendum because the people elected him to make those decisions for him. I offer that the silent majority who have no idea that their taxes are going up without a ceiling in sight would make it a point to vote when they can't attend meetings. The Transportation Committee should put the Transit Commission to the voters for approval or disapproval. And the Transit Commission should involve neighboring counties because St. Croix County's decisions affect more than St. Croix County residents. This is a battle between socialism and free market ideals. The problem with socialism is that you eventually run out of other people's money. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next guest is Jacqueline Nickum.
Jacqueline Nickum, 2663 Hilltop Lane, River Falls, Wisconsin. I apologize to those who have heard this speech already this morning, but I'm going to repeat it for you. It still holds true. This is regarding the Transit Commission. We have big issues in our county that need attention. Roberts and Hammond both have problems with their wastewater plants. The county just voted to increase the family intervention staff by 2 additional persons. This is a result of the increased issues with drug addiction in our county. The nursing home is operating in the red. The 2018 budget increased by 7.1% in addition to the 6% increase last year. Taxes will be going up with the borrowing for the county maintenance building. I've sat in on a few of the transit subcommittee meetings over the past few months, and I understand the desire to provide transportation for those who don't have it or can't afford it. I understand the compassion for that. But government simply cannot provide for all. There are limits to finances and services. Our county already has transportation services for those persons over 60 years old and with disabilities. At meetings, I've heard more than once that these services are underutilized. There are other services that understandably could be expanded, such as the taxi service in River Falls, in Richmond. I think it would be a great idea to have a taxi service like that in Hudson. I think that would be wonderful. Why it hasn't gotten started, I don't understand. Our county already has transportation for services, never mind. Let me see here, did I already, I think I read that. I just shouldn't go off script here, I guess. But instead, there is a drive to start a whole new passenger service. Buses, bus drivers, schedulers, maintenance facilities, bus stops, or bus shelters, all of these cost money. Even if you cover most of the initial costs with federal grants, taxpayers are still paying for all of this. And what happens after the grants run out? The county is responsible. A few meetings back, this plan was put into place to bring this in front of the Transportation Committee and then to the county board. At that time, Scott Nelson said he knows that a request for a commission would pass the county board. Well, here we are today. I would like you to keep in mind that the participation in the survey that was presented a couple of years ago to the public, that was at the outset of this process, and there were only 934 responses. Of those responses, 86% were from people 65 years of age or older. Folks, we live in a rural county. Our population is just over 87,000 people. So this is about a 1% response. Ladies and gentlemen, that is about 1% of our population that even responded to the survey. And yet here we are today proposing to establish a transit commission, paying per diem to commissioners each time they meet. And that's only the beginning of the costs. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next guest is Diane Jacob.
Good morning. My name is Diane Yoakum. I live in New Richmond. I own businesses in Hudson, New Richmond, and Baldwin. Hence the tax issue. Most of you got your taxes recently and paid them. Most of you paid them willingly, gratefully that we live in such a great country. The shocker for us is that just for the location in Hudson, our taxes went up $2,000. The thing that bothers me is not only did it go up this year, it went up last year, and the way things are going with the spending of the county board and the city of Hudson, they're going to go up even further. We're looking at a $27 million maintenance building. Excuse me, I've been fighting this cold. We're looking at a bike trail. We're looking at working or living wage. We're looking now at a transportation issue. We're looking at the health care deficit. We're looking at the budget increase. We're looking at grants as if they were free money. They aren't free money. There is nothing free about the money we get from any government, whether it be the state or the federal or the local. It costs me as a taxpayer money. It costs my business money. It costs me personally with my property. It costs me money. I'm looking at selling my house and moving to Polk County because the taxes are getting so high. That's what's going to happen to a lot of the people who own houses that pay a lot of money on taxes in Hudson and in St. Croix County. People can't afford the taxes. Wages may go up, but when the taxes go up 13% in 2 years, that's not going to make it. That is not going to cut it. The residents that are young people coming up and wanting jobs in this area, they can't afford to buy a house. They can't afford to pay the taxes. They're going to look for other states that have a lower tax base so that they can have a better income. The Chamber of Commerce chairman stated some weeks ago that it was important that the businesses have mass transit. Well, I can tell you as a business owner that mass transit is not going to affect my business. It's not going to affect those businesses in the industrial park. It's going to affect other than the taxes, okay? The Chamber of Commerce does not speak for the majority of the businesses that want mass transit. So I ask you to reconsider this, get the residents of this community and this county involved in establishing this transit committee. It's imperative that you have public input so that we don't go down that train wreck of overspending. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else has a public comment at this time for on or off the agenda? Any other public comment? One last time, any other public comment? I don't see any. We'll move on with our agenda then. Thank you, everyone. We have our consent agenda, minutes from previous meeting, January 4th, date of our next meeting, March 6th. And we have a rezoning ordinance amending the comprehensive zoning ordinance, chapter 1772, section 3, town 29N, range 19W, town of St. Joe. That's on our consent agenda. Do I have a motion by Supervisor Coulter, second by Supervisor Brinkman. Too many hands. Any discussion on the consent agenda? If there's no discussion, we'll vote on that. Cindy? And that was all yeses. Thank you. And now we get into presentations and recognitions, and we have a Loyalty Day proclamation, and Supervisor Art is going to read that for me.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Board of Supervisors, what you have in your packet before you is a proclamation which will be representative of the St. Croix County Board of Supervisors. This proclamation will be published within the VFW State Loyalty Day book, which is a commemorative book published for the State Loyalty Day Parade, which VFW Post 10818 of New Richmond will be hosting this year on April 28th in the city of New Richmond. So I will read that proclamation for you at this time. Proclamation, St. Croix County Board of Supervisors, St. Croix County, Wisconsin, Loyalty Day 2018. Whereas St. Croix County embraces and welcomes individuals of all nations, beliefs, and perspectives, and whereas Loyalty Day, first noticed in 1921, is the day whereby citizens affirm their loyalty to our flag, community, state, country, and whereas this nation was founded and continues to thrive in the midst of adversity because we as a nation believe that everyone has the right to be free. And whereas American citizens have given the ultimate sacrifice in the defense of freedom, and whereas VFW Memorial Post 10818 and its auxiliary have been selected to host the VFW Wisconsin State Loyalty Day Parade on Saturday, April 28th, 2018 in the city of New Richmond with the theme, United We Stand, We Will Not Be Divided. And now, therefore, I, Roger Larson, St. Croix County Board Chairman, by the affirmation of the St. Croix County Board of Supervisors, do hereby proclaim April 28th, 2018, Loyalty Day in St. Croix County. In testimony whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the Great Seal of St. Croix County to be affixed this 8th day of February, 2018. This is what we are seeking approval on. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to annual department reports. County Treasurer's report at this time. Denise Anderson?
Did you want to vote on that proclamation?
We want to vote on that?
You want? I think we should. Okay.
Well, we can. So I need a motion to vote on that proclamation. Supervisor Coulter, Supervisor Hanson. Supervisor Hanson.
I'm sorry.
Any discussion?
Who made the
What?
Who made the motion?
Supervisor Coulter made it, seconded by Supervisor Hanson.
Second?
I had a lot of hands. If that isn't working,
Get the second to the motion, there you go.
okay, there we have it. Is there any discussion? Not seeing any discussion, we'll vote. That's all yeses. Thank you. The floor is yours, Denise.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning and for taking the time to review the report I submitted. I'll be very brief, highlighting just a few points. As you know, the duties of the Treasurer's Office are all directed by statute. Two primary responsibilities include the receiving and balancing of all the county monies and then the collection of the property taxes. Most people are familiar with the tax collection activity, but we actually have many other duties throughout the year, some of which are described in that section B of the report. The nature of the office is cyclical, with different responsibilities each month. Among other resources, we use a calendar provided by the Department of Revenue as a guideline to ensure we're meeting all our requirements. Regarding the property tax collections, we calculate and print the property tax bills in the first part of December. We then contract with 16 of our 35 municipalities to collect those taxes from December through January. We prepare a February settlement for all municipalities and then collect all the postponed and delinquent taxes for the remainder of the year. And finally, we prepare our final settlement with all the municipalities again in August. As you can imagine, we have a lot of data in our office. And in the written report, you'll see that I included at least some of that data that I thought might be of interest. That first chart just gives a breakdown of the 2017 tax levy by municipality. The second chart displays the delinquency patterns over the last 5 years. You'll notice that even as the total tax levy has increased most years with the exception of 2014, the current year taxes that remain unpaid as of September 1st has decreased each year. The number of parcels delinquent as of September 1st has also decreased each year. In addition to that, the total unpaid taxes for all years as of year end has also decreased each year. So it's evident that we have less taxpayers who are falling delinquent. In fact, we now have a less than 1% delinquency rate for the current year taxes. The third chart there regarding the reminder notices mailed shows that the taxpayers choosing the installment option, thereby postponing their second half of tax, has also decreased each of the past 7 years. More taxpayers are apparently paying their taxes in full in either December or January. I think those numbers speak to the overall financial stability of the residents of St. Croix County, giving an optimistic economic position. I just wanted to talk briefly about a few of the things we were working on during the past year. We've worked with our finance department and the auditors to more clearly define roles and a separation of duties between our two departments. We focused on implementing procedures to cross-check all our receipts and accounting, and this is strengthening our internal controls, something that the auditors have been asking us to do. We took a full inventory of all our county bank accounts. This required visits to banks with Bob Midditt, our finance director, Renee Eichelman, the ADRC program support specialist. We closed and/or merged a few accounts that we determined were no longer needed. We removed signers from accounts and added only those who need access. And we now have a complete and accurate information which we share with finance and will share with the auditors as well. Regarding our egg conversion charges, those are charges that are assessed by statute on properties that are removed from an agricultural status. They're determined by the assessors, calculated using an annual rate per acre provided by the Department of Revenue, and then our office bills for those charges. The collections are shared 50-50 with the municipality. We made an effort to track all of our unpaid egg conversion charges from previous years. We provided first and second notices to both the current owner and the owner on record at the time of conversion, and placed uncollected charges on the tax roll as provided by statute. In 2017, we collected over $10,000 in outstanding charges, and we now have a tracking procedure in place that will enable us to keep current on those collections. There's a chart in the packet there as well, or in the report, and you can notice that those egg conversion charges have continued to decrease each year, with the exception of last year when we collected the outstanding charges, and we expect that trend to continue as less agricultural land is available for development. One goal that we had in our department was to print our tax bills earlier in December. Last year, we were able to accomplish that. Collaborating with our municipalities and our real property department, we printed 49,611 tax bills, which was 544 more than in 2016, one full week earlier than in previous years. That allowed us more time for December collections, resulting in less tax overpayments, which in turn saves time and resources by not having to process checks back to our taxpayers. We received really good feedback from our residents, especially our snowbirds, mortgage companies, and the municipalities as well. Finally, for buyers who purchase property late in the year, that name change does not transfer to our records in time for printing of the tax bills. So those tax bills are actually end up getting mailed to the prior owner or the seller of the property. In 2016, at the request of Chairman Larson and some of our residents, we obtained a list of these properties from our real property listers, searched our records for those that still remained unpaid, and mailed a copy of the tax bill along with a letter to those owners. That was well received by the owners, and we continued that procedure again in 2017. We obtained that list from real property in December and again in January as the property records were updated, mailing a total of 314 copies of tax bills. Finally, I just wanted to mention the goals that we have for 2018. We will continue to train and work with our new Oracle accounting system. We fully expect that it'll streamline our receipting and accounting procedures for county deposits. We'll collaborate with IT and GCS to complete our interface project, providing for direct data recording from our tax collection system into the general ledger. We plan to work with Corp Counsel and the county clerk to at least consider the transition from a tax deed process to an in-rem process for our delinquent tax parcels. And we'll continue to work with the auditors and the finance department to define roles and cross-checking of processes, clarifying our separation of duties and strengthening our internal controls.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Are there any questions? Not seeing any. Thank you, Denise. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our next annual report is our county clerk, Cindy.
Good morning. I think I'll stay over here since I'm going to operate this a little bit. Again, I promise it'll be a short report. My report is in your packet. It summarizes our responsibilities, both statutory and what we do elective, such as passport application processes, which is a good revenue for us. They are listed in the report. I would just like to highlight a couple of things. First of all, with the budget, we had 2 scheduled elections in 2017. Both the spring primary and the spring election both had relatively low turnouts. We did have a special election in December of 17, which I believe I've indicated before is because of the office, it is the responsibility of the county to pay for that election, including municipal costs. And so I do not have all those costs collected yet, but just to highlight that that 17 elections budget may be over budget because of that election. And then again, in 18, we will pay for the partisan election that was held in January, in addition to the 4 scheduled elections. But that would only be county expenses. The municipal costs just come into play for those 2 special elections. So just to highlight that for you. The City of River Falls, in 2016, we began to use our new election equipment. The City of River Falls has now purchased the same equipment, which is good news for us. So we're all on the same page. There's one district in the City of River Falls, or that is in St. Croix County. The other side is Pierce County. So I was glad to see that they came in with the same equipment that the St. Croix County uses. Voter registration services. We do voter registration services for 16 municipalities in St. Croix County. We do charge for that service, but it is a lot of work. It's entering voter registrations. printing poll books, maintaining the data. The most recent thing that changed with that is absentee tracking. So clerks are now required to track absentees in voter registration system when they receive a request, when they mail out the request, when the ballot was returned. That has to all be tracked, and that is a lot of work when it comes to the more the November elections, I should say, when there's more activity in absentee. So we do that too for our reliers. Some of them are doing that themselves, but it is a lot to track, and it's a lot of communication between the municipalities and the county clerk's office. I would like to show you a website that maybe you aren't aware of. I don't know if anybody has seen the MyVote website. It is maintained by the Wisconsin Elections Commission. This website, you can find your voter information on here. You can find your polling place. You can see what's on your ballot. You can request an absentee ballot online. It goes directly to your municipal clerk. Register to vote, you can do that, but you're still required to show proof of residence. You can only do it up to the, I guess, not to the late registration period. This website is very useful, and we direct a lot of people there when they're looking for where their polling place is, what's on their ballot. You do have to enter your information here, but I'd just like to share it just so you know what's out there, tell people about it. It's on our website. It's a very useful website, and you can see your elected officials out there if you put in your address and where you vote. So just wanted to point that out just briefly on that. Other things I'd just like to highlight is our, I guess our licenses, our passport activity. We do, passports have just increased. It's been 10 years now since the requirement for a passport has been done, and the passports are good for 10 years. So we don't do renewal passport applications, but we do take photos. So that there's just a lot of activity, especially people preparing for spring break with their families. Tax deed parcels, we've sold 7 parcels. I have ongoing parcels that I am working on too that aren't marketable that we need to just get back on the tax roll. And just a week or so ago, the treasurer just dropped off another stack of files for me to work on. So, and I think that's about it. I should mention that our Board of Canvass members, it's Dean Jewett representing the Democratic Party, Scott Nordstrand representing the Republican Party, and myself. And if I'm on the ballot, First Deputy Amy Hansen serves as the Board of Canvass. I want to thank my staff. They're amazing. They're really hard workers. In 17, we were short-staffed for a couple months, and Amy and Patty just stepped up to the plate, and they worked hard. And like I said, we do have a lot of activity in the office. Our new member is Shannon Conan. She's great. She's on board with everything. She's just wonderful to have a new addition to our office. In June of 2019, St. Croix County is going to host the Wisconsin County Clerk Association conference. I'm working with the chamber on that and looking forward to that. Hopefully we'll have a good turnout there. We'll get some clerks in the area to stay here, to shop here, to eat here. So it'll be kind of fun to have that group along with several vendors in the area. So I'd like to thank Roger and Dave, working with them and the county board, the administration committee for their support, Corporation Counsel, Scott Cox, who I daily email or talk to almost, and of course the IT staff. So any questions?
Have any questions? Supervisor Berkey?
Just a quick question. Have we hosted a county clerks convention in the past?
Not since I've been clerk.
Okay.
So I don't know when the last one was done here, so.
Okay, that's great. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So
Good luck.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Not seeing none. Thank you, Cindy. We'll move on to our administrator, Mr. Thompson, for his financial report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The packet that you have for the financial reports represent activity through the end of the year, December 2017. These are still very preliminary numbers in the packet, so they don't represent year-end final numbers. That report probably will be more like March, April, when we get the year-end final reports. And they still would have to be audited as well. But preliminary reports, we show budgeted expenditures of year-to-date $91,311,910 compared to a budget of $99.4 million. So we're under budget in terms of expenditures. Again, preliminary. I'm sure they're still processing 2017 expenditures, but preliminary budget looks like we'll be in good shape. Expenditures, same holds true with revenues. We had budgeted revenues of $102 million. We show year-to-date of $81.1 million, but we will be processing revenues, grants through probably March, April, before we reflect total year-end revenue collections. So again, preliminary reports look good for the budget, and we will have a final report to you most likely in March or April. And then also included in your packet is a status report on the 2017-2018 capital improvement project lists. These lists are all the capital improvement projects that the board has approved, the status of those in terms of expenditures year to date. So if there aren't any questions, that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Rockroff.
I just have one question. With a KIP, when we go over budget, like there's one here, and I can totally understand sometimes why they would go over budget because the prices change compared to what you started with, but where does that extra money come from?
Which project are you looking
Okay,
at, Supervisor? Just so I'm...
Under community development, they did the reconstruction of county park driveways and parking lots, and I don't mean to pick out community development.
No, I just wanted to...
But just...
Generally speaking, a lot of the capital improvement projects will come in under budget. Those dollars fall to the bottom line in terms of the capital improvement total budget. So if there is a project that exceeds budget, it would draw on that reserve that has fallen to the bottom. Now, that specific project, which one were you again looking at?
It's the reconstruction of county park driveways and parking lots. It's, oh yeah, I don't know what, it's on page 41 and it's kind of in the middle of the community development parks.
County park driveways and parking lots. So we had 50,000 budgeted, year to date 67,000. So that will draw from the remaining balance in the CIP.
And I'm assuming we always have the remaining balance since it's a continuous ongoing.
Yes.
And how much on average do we earn in interest? I assume we earn, where does the interest go from the KIP money? Back into KIP?
No, it goes back into the general fund. Interest earned on, interest on investments.
Okay.
Does not go back into the CIP.
But okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Not seeing any. We will move on to our business items for the day. And the first one is a resolution awarding the sales of a $27 million general obligation highway maintenance facility bond, Series 2018A, providing the form of the bonds and levying a tax in connection therewith. I need a motion, Supervisor Berkey.
Thank you.
And Supervisor Nelson seconds. Discussion. Supervisor Berkey.
I would point out that the administration committee met prior to this meeting and approved the resolution, Northland Securities as being the low bidder, and that's in the context of the resolution. And I think it would be a good opportunity to have Joe Murray from Springstead give a report to us in terms of process.
That'll be fine. So you can step up to the.
Good morning. Thank you very much. I'm Joe Murray from Springstead, proud to be the county's financial advisor. If you recall, I was in front of you back in the fall to talk about the financing plan for your new highway facility. And today is the culmination of all the efforts to move forward. As part of the financing, the plan is for the county to issue $27 million of general obligation highway facility bonds. And as part of that process to do the sale, we go through a credit rating process through Moody's Investor Service. I'm proud to let the county know that your AA1 rating was affirmed. The AA1 rating is the second highest rating available, only a AAA is higher. Based on having a very good credit rating, which reflects your location in the Twin Cities metropolitan statistical area and the diverse economy, your expanding and diverse tax base, as well as your strong financial management, you were able to maintain that strong credit rating. You should take great pride in being recognized as being such a strong community. Based on having those high credit rating, yesterday we went out to bid for the $27 million. We received 9 bids, which is a very high number of bids to reflect a lot of interest in buying your securities. I'm pleased to note that the low bid came in at 3.005% from Northland Securities. When I was before you in the fall, we had projected it would come in at 3.39%. So we beat our projections by roughly 39 basis points. I'm also pleased to let you know that the cover bid, or the second lowest bid, came within 5 basis points. So that showed that they were good competition, and that 5 of the bids came within 10 basis points, and a basis point is 0.01%. So it was tight all the way through, and I'm really proud to report that all 9 of the bids came in lower than our projections. So under any of the scenarios, the news was good. So what does that mean for the county and for your taxpayers? Based on the lower bids, we have the net interest cost coming in $1.3 million less than what was projected back in the fall of last year. The annual debt service cost is going to be roughly $1,871,000. That's down from $1,926,000 we had projected back in the fall. That results in having your annual tax rate for $100,000. In the fall, I said it was going to be about $21 per $100,000 equalized value. It drops down to $20.35. Not major, a big difference, but it is still a savings based on what we had projected. So based on the strong bidding and the low cost and the savings, recommend that you adopt the resolution before you and award the sale of the county's 2018A general obligation highway facility bonds to Northland Securities at a true interest cost of 3.0051%. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Is there any questions? Any further discussion? Supervisor Nelson.
If in the near future, I'm just throwing this out there, can we pay early if we, from sales and assets of if we sell the highway facility as is, there's no penalty to pay early, or we got to sit on a schedule? Because every time we pay ahead, just like doing a car, the interest goes down. But we should have that ability, correct?
Only in 10 years. You can prepay this after 10 years, a call provision.
And this is a 20-year, correct?
This is a 20-year issue, and after 10 years, you will be able to prepay it at any time after that point.
Okay.
Any other discussion or questions? Supervisor Brinkman.
This one's a 10-year. In the past, haven't we done an 8-year call? Or, I mean, is that just changing in the industry, or?
this is the longest you've ever gone out. In the past, you've done most of your issues as a 10-year term. And with a 10-year term, the industry will allow for the last 2 to 3 years to be called. On a 20-year, to attract the investors, you have to give them a guarantee that they're going to hold their investments for at least a 10-year period before you can call it. We could have done a shorter call provision if that was important, but you would have paid for it with higher interest rates.
Any other discussion? Supervisor Peavy.
Yep, I just wanted to, if anybody's got any question on the facility itself, Robbie's here with Todd and there's blueprints on the wall. So I don't know if there's any questions on the actual facility. Otherwise, nope, I have no other comments.
Any other questions? Not seeing any. Supervisor Peterson.
I just wanted to add to Bill's comments, if I may, that the committee, when they looked at this facility, I once again want to reiterate, we went forward with a common sense approach. It's not the Taj Mahal, what some were saying that we were trying to build. We think that we came up with a very, very serviceable facility.
Thank you. Supervisor Hanson.
I'd also like to add, there have been comments that this is an outrageous amount of money, but the opportunity cost of not building this is also significant. We hired an engineering company to do an evaluation of our existing facility years ago, 3 years ago, I believe. They came up with a figure of $4 million just to bring the existing facility up to code, which did nothing in terms of added capabilities. And they said that that would continue on annually, not necessarily $4 million, but in the many hundreds of thousands of dollars a year just to keep the building at code. It continued to be a deteriorating building. It continued to be an unsafe building. And that was their evaluation, and that was what the decision to go forward with this was based on. As to the cost of building this facility, it will add, based on our annual payment of $1,800,000 and some $1,000, it's going to come out to 20 cents per $1,000 equalized value. It's just not a huge amount of money that's going to hit the tax levy for this, and it's going to hit the tax levy once in 2019, and it's the only increase that people are going to see in their taxes once. So there's, I think, a lot of concern, and I can understand that. I deeply understand that. But it's when you consider that we all want the highway to be plowed in front of our house, it's going to be done with better efficiency, and we'll continue to move into the 21st century with better facilities to make that job happen as we grow as a county. So, thank you.
Any other discussion or questions? Not seeing any. Cindy will vote. Two noes, the rest are all yes. It passes. Thank you, everyone. Our number 2 is a resolution amending the 2018 budget. I'll turn that over to, I need a motion. Supervisor Babbitt, need a second. Supervisor Coulter. Discussion on that. Supervisor Babbitt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As all of you know, we've been discussing the issue of how the county needs to respond to what's very clearly a crisis point in terms of trying to make sure that we can provide necessary services to children who are affected by the opioid epidemic as well as the ongoing and re-emerging meth crisis. We spoke briefly about this last month at County Board. We've been following this actively at HHS. And so this resolution is putting forward a request to amend the 2018 budget to add 2 staff positions within HHS to help us meet that spiraling need. So I would certainly appreciate the support of the board to move forward with this amendment. As stated, I know we have Fred Johnson and Julie Krings is here as well if there are questions that anyone has about why we're doing this. But essentially it comes down to a situation where we essentially have to, in order to try to make the caseloads for existing staff workable and respond to the crisis as best we can.
Questions? Supervisor Brinkman.
I guess maybe this would be towards Fred, but my question would be is, did we look at repurposing any other positions before adding 2 new positions? Was that looked at, Fred? Fred's here.
Have Fred Johnson come forward.
We looked at certainly opportunities for internal reorganization, but to a large degree, the way our funding is earmarked in certain positions, there's not unlimited flexibility. But at this point, I would not be recommending to the Board of Supervisors reduction in other divisions to support increasing the workload increase in children's services.
Any other questions? Supervisor Nelson?
But this, Fred, is coming out of your fund balance, correct?
Yes, that's how it would be funded at this point, yes.
So then what it says here is 2019, it would go through the budget process, correct?
That is correct.
Any other questions? Discussion? Not seen any. I need a second from Supervisor Coulter. Thank you. And we can vote. That's all yeses. Thank you. Our next business item is a resolution authorizing continuation of self-insured workers' compensation program. I have a motion to approve that. Supervisor Berkey, I have a second. Supervisor Motatum. Discussion on that.
This resolution comes in front of the board from the administration committee. Every 3 years, the state of Wisconsin requires local units of government that are self-funded in their workers' compensation to have their governing body, in this case, the Board of Supervisors, pass an authorizing resolution to allow the continuation of the self-funding of our workers' compensation insurance program. So this is a 3-year requirement that we're complying with. We've been self-funded since 1989, and we do this every 3 years.
Okay. Any questions? Any discussion other than that? Not seeing any? We'll vote. That's all yeses. Thank you. Our next business item, number 4, is a resolution supporting the TAP grant application for St. Croix County. Motion from Supervisor Hanson. Second. Supervisor Berkey. Discussion. Supervisor Hanson.
This TAP grant was, it came from the Community Development Committee. The work that was done on it, however, was done in a joint effort by Ellen and Rob, our Highway Commissioner, and the Director of Community Development. The decision to run the TAP application on the part of our plan where it was based on that this is one of our top 5 priorities, and that it will be a priority of the state, the people who are going to issue the grant as well. I'm proud that we have 2 of our departments working together on this. It's a substantial grant, and a great deal of work has gone into it, and I would appreciate you each to vote for it.
Any questions? Supervisor Long.
So from a financial standpoint, if we're voting in favor of the resolution, we are, in fact, agreeing to spend another $300,000. Is that correct?
Yes, that's our matching portion.
Any other questions? Any other discussion? Let's see, Supervisor Brinkman.
Are we voting to apply for this, or are we voting to accept it if we receive it? I guess that'd be my question.
We're voting to accept this. We're going to apply for it if we get the grant. We're voting to approve the project, go forward with it, and accept the money.
Yep. Somebody step into the podium to speak on that.
Maybe a little bit of a clarifying statement on the application. This is a federal grant, part of the Federal Transportation Acts, that this funds that we're applying for are designated for bike and pedestrian use out of the federal government. We would be supporting the application at this point. This is a competitive process. St. Croix County still has the option of completing the project if it is awarded. So at this point, it's just supporting the application.
You always have the option to decide at the point of award if you're going to accept. And as long as I'm up here, if I could just take a moment, there's a resolution of support from the town of St. Joseph in your packet. That actually is the wrong resolution of support. They have a resolution of support for a different thing in that was loaded by mistake. We had a lot of trouble with the last Community Development Committee materials. Had to be re-signed 3 or 4 times with the program. So anyway, long story short, the wrong thing got loaded, and I have a paper copy just for your reference of the correct resolution of support of this application from the town of St. Joe. Just thought I'd correct that as long as I had the opportunity.
Any other questions? Supervisor, let's take Supervisor Coulter first.
Okay, well, I voted against the bike plan, and but I am going to support this because it's probably a small part of the bike plan that made any sense to me at all, and it's because most of this will connect up the loop trail that's already happening down toward North Hudson. WisDOT is planning on upgrading 35, and I think 2021 that could change, but they're going to widen it and make allowances for more bike access. And so I call this the second loop. It'll connect eventually the I-94 bike path with the loop trail and across the other 2 bridges. And it will, in the meantime, perhaps aid some bicycle traffic that will pass every beer joint in North Hudson and Hudson. So.
Supervisor Long? Okay.
We did have a question.
Supervisor Peavy.
Yeah, I guess more of a question for Pat. What would be the source? I know we got about 80,000 left in the bike plan from this capital improvement plan. What would be the source of the other 220,000 or odd dollars, whatever it would be? Where would, I know we're looking out quite a few years and it's hard to predict, but in your opinion, where would that money, where would be the source?
It would probably be part of future capital improvement budgets, which the board would have to approve. So any match that's required for this project, any county match that is not currently budgeted would have to go through a budget process to be approved.
Supervisor Brinkman.
How long of a process is this? Are we talking years? I mean, are you going to apply tomorrow and you're going to know by June 1st, or are you going to apply tomorrow and find out June of 2030?
Actually, that's a good question. So I've been involved in 4 TAP projects in my past. Traditionally, we won't find out till late summer if we're accepted. We then have a 6-year window to complete the project. It's 4 or 6, that's depending on if they change the rules for this TAP cycle. Traditionally, it's been 4 or 6 that you have allow for the municipality to complete the project so that the financing doesn't affect them as drastically. So we have certain time frames, but it's an extensive process.
So then at that time, once they award us the grant, whatever they say, I mean, they can make whatever changes they want. It'll come back to the board and we can say yes or no to funding it. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second on the floor. We'll vote on this. That's all yeses. Thank you. Now we'll move down to another resolution on the same thing, the resolution of support for the Town of St. Joe's TAP grant application. I have a motion. Supervisor Babbitt, second. Supervisor Matter. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Discussion on this, we heard it's the same thing, so do we need any more discussion? I need a second. Okay, so the motion and second's there. Everybody evidently is ready to vote, so we'll vote on this one too. And this one's also all yeses. Thank you. Last item here is a resolution for the formation of a transit commission. I have a motion, Supervisor Anderson. Second, Supervisor Nelson. What? Nelson.
Anderson.
All right. Okay. Discussion, any discussion? Supervisor Coulter.
Yeah, I'll be opposing this. We're right on the brink of a transportation disruption like we've never seen in our lifetimes. I mean, we're talking about going from buggy whips to Camaros. And GM announced just in the last couple of weeks that they're going to start mass producing autonomous cars next year. The largest rideshare operation in the world is just entering the U.S. market. It happens to be owned by the parent company of Mercedes-Benz, and they haven't been here till now. CEO of Mercedes-Benz claims to have technology that makes them the leader in autonomous cars. Uber made a deal with Volvo to buy 24,000 autonomous cars. Whether there's one in your future or my future, the prognosis right now is that lots of these are going to be operated by big fleets and they won't be sold mostly to individuals. But it will certainly make portal-to-portal transportation for more people more economical. And I went to the Transit Committee meeting this morning and heard people there talk about how nothing we're going to do here is going to happen till 2020 or later. I think this is going to happen before that. And in many instances, may not be in Hudson, but it'll be nearby, and who knows where it's going to blossom. But it's certainly going to change the face of transportation and offer a lot more advantages to people to age in place, for one thing, but also for people to not own cars, possibly. We'll tear down all the garages, but who knows? The other thing is that I have a lot of people that have in my circle of acquaintances and some constituents who telecommute, and that's been growing a great deal. My daughter-in-law telecommutes. I have a neighbor across the street. I have another neighbor not too far away. This is a growing activity as well. So we're on the verge of a lot of big things happening, and I'd say that buses are going to look very retro in not too distant future. So in any transit commission that gets up ahead of steam will be sure to spend money. I'm positive of that. So I just soon we not do this.
Supervisor Osmus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I chair the Transit Subcommittee, and I've got a few things I'd like to discuss. But before I do that, I'd like to make one simple amendment to the resolution. That's on line 12. It says statute 58.58. It should read 59.58, and I would move that we change that.
You did that in the committee.
We're going to do it here, though, correct?
No,
We don't have to do that here?
I changed it.
Okay. All right, then I'm going to move on. And my next thing is I think we would like, I'd like Corp Counsel to explain what the duties of the commission will be.
Well, the commission operates as basically the policy making body of any county-wide transit system and supervises the transit system. It statutorily has the authority to contract with private entities, purchase equipment, buses, etc., with this caveat that the commission itself does not have separate budgeting or tax levying authority. Any funds that are used in the system first have to be appropriated by the county board. For example, if the county were to receive a 5311 federal grant, that money would have to be appropriated and included in the budget and authorized for use before the Transit Commission would have the ability to use those funds. And certainly if there are any, county levy funds or other fees, those would have to be incorporated and approved before an actual countywide transit system is operated. So the basic premise is that this commission is really the policy-making body of what that transit system will look like, but it ultimately has the supervision of the county board with respect to the purse strings that are necessary to operate the system.
And thank you, Scott. To give folks a little bit of a background, I've heard on a number of occasions, had phone calls that we're going to be out purchasing buses right away. Plain and simple, and pardon my English, that ain't going to happen. A number of people say, why do we need a bus like this in downtown St. Paul, Minneapolis? That's not going to happen. That's 10, 15, 20 years out before we even think about a size that size. We're just beginning to look at sending RFIs out, requests for information, to see if there's any private partners who would be willing to provide a service for the county. There may be a couple, 2, 3 of them that could work together, and it would be completely a private system. We don't know that yet. We don't know what percentage would be private or public if we combine the two. 2 years ago, I told our subcommittee we're a newborn. We don't know where our fingers are. We don't know where our toes are. We don't know what arms are. We don't know where legs are. There were many that were on the committee didn't know what a 5311 was. They didn't know what 8521 was or what that funding was for. We opened our doors, and we've had a number of people come in and give their opinions. There were folks that had needs. The hospitals were in and made the comment that they have a number of people, patients that may have a ride to there. They don't have a ride home, so they'd have to take staff members to get them home. They need to take staff members to get them to Stillwater for dialysis, or get them into Ramsey or Unity, or over to Eau Claire. Yeah, we've had businesses that have come in and said, we can't get our employees to work. We have Bill Rubin, our economic development director, has had conversations with businesses who want to come into St. Croix County, and their first question is, do you have public transportation? Part of the survey that was done and the information that was gathered, we have found that we do have transportation in the county, and transportation is a form of a ride share in the city of River Falls and the city of New Richmond, and that's basically it for public transportation. We know that some of our seniors through the ADRC have rides. We have some good folks with the disabled that are providing rides to and from wherever they need to go, and that's not enough. The beat goes on. It's not going to get any better. We know that 44% of the county from Highway 65 to the west commute to the city. And the farther west we go, obviously, the more rural it gets. But we need to look at our folks in the eastern half of the county as well, and what we're going to do to help them. The system can't be put in all in one shot. That's not going to work that way. The initial plan was to perhaps start a fixed route between Hudson and River Falls, and see how that goes. And then expand that from River Falls to Hudson up through Somerset over to New Richmond. And if that goes well, then it will go down from New Richmond and back to River Falls. There was talk on an express route from the Park and Ride in Baldwin into downtown St. Paul. It's going to be a long ways off. We've got 9 Park and Rides across the county right now. There are 745 county residents that take those vans. The issue with that is those vans go to one business. You can't get off along the way. You can't get on along the way coming back home. We're trying to work with MTC to see if they can at least get a bus to help some of our residents get into downtown St. Paul, and then eventually get to wherever they might need to go in the cities. Their issue is there's a river between the state of Wisconsin and the state of Minnesota. And my comeback to that was we have 2 bridges that cross the river. They have a brand new bus stop on the west side of the bridge in Stillwater. We worked with DOT to expand our Pike and Ride in Holton. And I have asked if they would mind if we can provide numbers that it would be feasible for them to come at least across the river to that Park and Ride, where they come across the Park and Ride and provide a service. They said no. I said, why? Because there's a river between the 2 states. I've talked with Tammy Baldwin. MTC receives $2 million a year because they include 87,000 residents from St. Croix County. But they don't provide any help for us. So I made the comment to them, if you can't come across the bridge, then maybe we can take the $2 million and put it into some type of transportation here in St. Croix County, which would be a great help for us in the long run. All the folks that I've talked to have never said, I want. It's a need. We need to get folks from point A to point B. We need to get folks that are sitting at home who can't get out. We need to find a way to get them to church or get them down to the grocery store just to get out a little bit rather than stay cooped up at home. And I think we can do that, and we can all work together. It's going to be a long process. The commission is the first step in that. I thank the Human Service Network of St. Croix County. Before we took on this project, they had been working for 10, 12 years on trying to find ways to get their clients to where they needed to go. The county board, a couple, 2, 3 years ago, we listened to them. We formed a subcommittee. It's a slow process. We're not going to go fast at it. We're going to turn over every rock we can to find out what the costs are going to be. There are a number of us. I don't want to spend any more money than I have to. I don't want anybody here to spend any more money than I have to. I don't want 87,000 residents in the county to spend any more than we really have to. But we need to move forward with this and at least find out what the opportunities are. And I think there's some great opportunities. But we need to be patient and we need to move forward. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Mr. Yard.
There's no doubt that we need transportation alternatives within St. Croix County. And I know this well because I deal with rideshare through the city of New Richmond. The question that I have is that I truly believe, and no pun intended, we're putting the cart before the horse. I have visited multiple Wisconsin communities that have been in a transit situation similar to St. Croix County. But none of these have come through the county or the municipality. They have come through private partnerships that perhaps a government entity worked with to negotiate to bring them in. This is where I see St. Croix County, as we have an established transportation unit in Minnesota, which could be accessed. And I realize that they may not be willing to access Wisconsin, but I also think about that bridge, and that was completed. I just truly believe that we need to have an established plan of transportation before we start activating statutory language for the formation of a commission when we have no public transportation system in place. I think we need more data, more reach outs for partnerships, whether they are private or whether they are public-private or whether they are expansive. But I don't think this is the time to establish a commission. I think we have much more detail and data to gather before we get to this step.
Supervisor Hanson.
Thank you, sir. I agree with just about everything that my esteemed colleague just said. And this is the chicken and the egg thing. So I'm glad I never had to create either a chicken or an egg. The Transportation Committee has a great deal of work to do. And the work that Supervisor Ard just mentioned would need to be done by the Transportation Committee were this commission not formed. And that's why I'm going to support the formation of this commission, because I believe deeply in this mission, and I believe that the Transportation Committee and the subcommittee that has been led by Osnes here would be a continued burden on the Transportation Committee, and it's time to move forward. So that's why I'm going to vote for this, and I urge you to as well.
Supervisor Nelson.
When we gave the presentation on the feasibility study and transportation, one of the key things I did talk about, we need to have public-private. The public shouldn't be towing the boat for everything. That's why the privates have to, do their fair share. But I've been on the committee. It's a slow, painstaking process, and we've done quite a bit in the feasibility study with the Regional Planning Commission, things like that. And it's been pretty thorough. The one thing I have to say, though, it was a great sound bite. It was a nice article in the paper, but when Representative Duffy and Shannon Zimmerman were talking about there is a huge issue that we don't have transportation in St. Croix County, I'm going, well, we've been working on it for almost 2 years, because we know, because the locals know what the issues are. It might sound good, but, for them being at the state level and the federal level to realize that we're having an issue here, we know that there's an issue. And this is a slow, painstaking process because the government moves slow. So I'm supporting it because this is part of a process, and as long as we have which I always believe is that the county board has the oversight to say, we're either spending that money or we're not, because you represent the whole county. So that's the way we need to do it, to be everything up on board. And I really would like it when people go out and talk about these issues, that they don't make things up. Let's go with the truth. Let's go with the facts. That things aren't going to be, we're going to buy buses tomorrow. No, it's not true. It's not true. This is government and it's slow. But we want to make sure there's people that want to buy in. So that works out. I'm supporting this because I think it's about time. And we're also the 8th largest urban area in the state, if that's what Blake Fry told us when we were there. So we're not real rural, but we're pretty urbanized too.
Supervisor Peterson.
I'd like Supervisor Osnes to cover what he covered in our earlier meeting. My question is, would you just highlight what you feel a ballpark general cost of this commission would be? I think some are envisioning that we're going to have a high dollar head to it, and it's going to cost us a bunch of dollars.
Thank you, Supervisor Peterson. If we had 9 committee members or commission members at $75 a per diem and mileage, it would come to approximately $9,300 a year. And I don't believe it would come to that because I think a lot of commissioners would probably not take a per diem or the mileage. But that would be a maximum. Currently, the subcommittee has 3 supervisors on there, and that's averaging about $3,300 a year. We don't meet every month. The commission, I'm sure, would probably not meet every month. As far as grant writing and the cost for that down the road, we've got 4 folks and possibly 5 within the county that have worked on federal grants and that have volunteered their expertise and their hours. So there may be no cost to the county with that grant writing. The only staff that the commission would need to start out with would be somebody to take the minutes, set up a place where we could meet, get the agendas out on the calendar, much like the subcommittee does right now. And I've talked with our highway commissioner, and he's willing to let Randy Tolan continue to do what she is doing. If there's more that becomes involved down the road, we will look at it there, but there's no cost for staff right now. Federal grants obviously are 80-20. The 20% we will work with the highway committee with that, and that will also have to, any cost, again, as Scott has said, would have to come back to this board. He and I talked about that, and I fully agree that this board should be making the final decisions on any money that is spent as we move forward. Hope that helps out, Dave.
Supervisor Matter.
Supervisor Osnes, could you clarify me the makeup of the membership that's being proposed for the commission? What that will look like?
Sure. It's going to be made up of 2 transportation committee members, a supervisor at large, and 6 community members, citizen members.
Supervisor Brinkman.
What's the makeup of the current subcommittee that's working on this?
Current makeup right now is Scott Nelson and I are on the transportation committee. Paulette is supervisor at large. We've got Julie Bergstrom, who's on there, who has knowledge of rideshare from River Falls. She's from Warren Township. Peg Gagnon is on there from the bridge. Who else? We've got Tracy Davis on there from Aging and Disabilities. Help me out, Scott.
Brad Beckman.
Brad Beckman has been sitting on that as an advisor. Fred Johnson has been there as an advisor. We've had folks from the Hudson Y that have been there that'll sit in. Our EDC director has been sitting in on those meetings. Hudson Chamber has been to those meetings. Folks from the hospitals at one time or another have all been sitting there. It's a cross-section. Supervisor Matter. Oh, and I forgot the chair too, pardon me, Roger.
Any other discussion? Any other questions? If not, we have a motion and a second. We'll vote on it. Four noes, the rest are yeses, so it passes, it moves forward. There'll be a commission set up at a next meeting, most likely, so that passes. We'll move on to our request for further agenda items. Anybody have any agenda items they want brought up at the next month's meeting? If you have any, get them forward to Pat, Cindy, or myself, and we'll get them on the agenda. County Clerk's report.
Just a quick reminder that next month we start the 5 o'clock meeting times for county board meetings, 5 o'clock. And then there are 2018 calendars that Cedar Corporation provides every year. I apologize, I've been holding on to them for 2 months, so they're, I forgot. They're over there if you're interested in one of these calendars. Sorry about that. That's all I have.
Are there any announcements anybody has? Supervisor Brinkman.
I know this is short notice, but the highlight of the year for the Public Protection and Judiciary Committee will take place tomorrow after our 8 a.m. meeting. It is our annual jail inspection. Anyone that would like to inspect the jail with us is more than welcome to join us. We do have a light agenda before doing that, so we should probably be ready to go by 8:30. So we will be meeting here first.
On the calendar, you have the County Board Organizational Meeting for April 17th, and it's also annual board for town people, and that's not good.
It's the third Tuesday?
Yep,
Third
that's
Tuesday,
always our annual boards.
Yeah, April 17th is the organizational meeting for the county board.
Can't change, huh? I won't go.
Third Tuesday.
That's statutory. Because that's the first day of the term. Yeah.
Supervisor Peavy.
Yeah, well, again, following up on her comments, again, that's statutory date that the towns have to meet, so
Yeah.
could we have the reorganization meeting in the morning? Because I think all the towns meet in the evening, so if we could meet at 9 a.m. that day for the reorganizational meeting or whatever time the chairman, instead of having it in an evening meeting, that would resolve the conflict that Paulette and I, well, assuming we both get reelected, have that date. Otherwise, again, that date for us, for the town boards, is a statutory date. We can't change that, so.
Correct. Not the time, I mean.
Yeah. Okay. See if we can work on that one and come up with something for next meeting, so. Any other announcements?
There's a couple tickets remaining for the annual EDC Awards banquet. So if any board members are interested in attending, there are a few open seats still available. It's February 22nd, and it's being held at Kilcarney Golf Club in River Falls. That's the annual Economic Development Corporation Awards banquet. And all board members are invited.
There's no other announcements, nothing else. I want to thank everybody for a good meeting today, and we're adjourned.